very good morning. In the last lecture, I taught you about the various kinds of names which were given to the cloth material which was bought from Indians and then exported in the foreign market by which they used to make profit. Now let's step one step further and then see what effect did the export of cloth material from India have on the states abroad. We will take the example of England. As I had said, chintz was very, very popular over there, and what was chintz yesterday also, in the prior lecture also we discussed that it was on muslin cloth, on a plain cloth. Beautiful flowery designs were made which was worn by the queen herself. Very, very powerful because it was economical, it was very cheap to buy, it was very wearable, and because of the trend of that flowery print, it was a bestseller. So now what happened is the cotton textile and the woolen textile people of England felt threatened because of the Indian cloth which was being imported in their own country, and they did not have any business at all. So they just started protesting, saying that if you bring in so much of material from outside, how will we survive? So the Britain what did do? It passed a legislation to protect the rights of the factory mill owners over there, and they passed an act saying that we now put a ban on the import of chintz from India. And those people named the act, the legislation act which put a ban on the Indian cloth chintz. That act was called the Calico Act. Now after this, British being British, what they did was, now somehow England had to manage, the cloth mill owners had to manage the competition, the tough competition which was given by the Indian weavers. So what they did is, because the demand for chintz was predominant in the market, what these people did is, they took plain bleached muslin cloth, Indian only, plain bleached muslin cloth, they imported from India, only chintz was banned, okay, and then they printed flowers on it and sold it. So that means it was our idea, and these people were taking our cloth only, and then they started printing the flowery prints over there because it was in demand. Even if it was banned, how would people get that particular cloth? So the mill owners of England only started producing it. So this shows what kind of shrewd mentality the Britishers had. Not only this, now with the invention of one particular machine, it's called the spinning jenny. It's called the spinning jenny. The production of the cloth in England took a toll. Like it rose very, very quickly. The production rose in number. And what was the spinning jenny? When you make threads, you need something called spindles. The thread will go and roll over the spindle. Now, if a man had to do it, if a human resource had to do it, it would take a lot of time. But with the spinning jenny, there were many spindles attached, and the thread would roll very fast. If you've seen Gandhiji also working on that loom, and then he charkha, and then he would make thread out of it. Cotton ko press karte and roll karte, then it becomes a thread. So for one person to make one spindle of thread, it would take a lot of time. But with this invention, the spinning jenny, and the inventor being John Kay, this person made a wheel on which many spindles were attached, and then it made the one labor could roll many spindles. The thread could be rolled on many spindles. So this actually lessened the time of the production of the cloth. There was one more invention which made a remarkable change in the production of things. That was the steam engine. Richard Arkwright was the inventor. Now, steam engine, as you know, works on the steam. It gives a push to certain elements which you want to work in a machine. So when the steam engine was introduced, the production of the cloth again rose to a very great height, and it made actually the work easier. I'm talking about the first step of the Industrial Revolution in England. Now, with all this also, could they compete with the Indian weavers? No. Indian textile industry was a very, very prominent one because of its quality and because of the cheap availability of resources, and the price also was less when compared to the others, where all the businessmen, the tradesmen used to come to India to buy from us, and then they would go and sell abroad at a very great profit. Now, who were the people who had come? The Dutch, the French, the Europeans all used to come to India to buy the material, and then they used to sell it in their own land at a higher price. Now, when you have to buy something from a country, you need currency. If you don't have currency, then you will bring in something which is very worthy, like a metal, a precious metal. They used to call in for silver from their motherland, and then used to give silver to us, and then they used to buy material from us. But when British came, when East India Company captured Bengal, what happened at that time? When it captured Bengal, almost the cotton textile industry was in its clutches. At that time, British stopped. I had taught you in the earlier chapter also, they stopped bringing in money from their own motherland, importing precious metal from their motherland. They used to tax the peasants and take the taxes from there, collect the taxes from there, and then pay to the cloth mill merchants, and our money only used to be circulated in our own country, and they used to export the material which was bought from us. So this was how now the problems for the weavers had started to begin. Like that beginning of the trouble had started from here. Now the competition was of Industrial Revolution. Now let's see how did the weavers and the other people suffer because of this coming up trend in the market. Well, to understand what effect did it have and why did it have, first we need to know about who were the weavers in Indian society. Now, weavers were actually a community of people, and the act of weaving was taught from generation to generation to generation in their families. They used to live together, and this particular style of making the cloth, the technique of making the cloth was taught by the forefathers to their descendants, and the descendants to the descendants. This was so special that the trade secret was kept in the family only. We did not have at that time in India, they did not do the production on machines. Everything was handmade, and something which is handmade is very, very unique and is very, very beautiful, because we take ultimate care of the product to make it. Now, certain examples to give you about the community people, about the people who lived in different parts of the country who used to make the cloth. You can take side to side a few examples. I would say Tanti weavers from Bengal. These are the names of the people who belong to that particular area. You had Julahas from the North India, and you had Kaikulars, Devangs from the South India. So everywhere around India you would see that these people were dwelling, and They lived in a tribe kind of community kind of living, and then they made the cloth. Now let's understand what is that stage of production. How did they make the cloth? First stage was spinning. As I just now said, two things were needed for it, charkha and the takli. But what is charkha? Charkha would be a spinning wheel, and the cotton would be put on it. It will be attached to another small spinning wheel, and cotton would be attached to it, and then thread would be attached like this, and then this particular cotton would be pressed very hard, and that would turn into a thread. Now where would the thread go and roll itself on? That's the takli. As I said in English, it would be a spindle. So the women of the family used to make the thread. The women of the family. Now remember, when you make cotton is what color? White. Thread, what will you make? Will be of white color. So we are talking about the process firstly of making a white plain muslin cloth or a white cotton cloth. So the spinning part of it was done, the spinning of the thread was done by the women of the family. Then came, when you would take all the taklis would be put on a loom, the hand loom, and then the man of the family would weave a cloth out of it. If you see a hand loom, you have to move one side of a hand like this and one side of a hand like this, and those threads keep spin, like they get woven into a long piece of cloth, white cloth, what I'm saying. So the weaving part of it was done by the men of the family. They were called the weavers. Now what if I did not want the white cloth? What if I wanted colorful cloth? Then you had somebody called rangres, like people in the community only. They specialized in the job of coloring the thread, not the cloth. They used to color the thread, and then weaving used to take place. So the people who used to be in the process of coloring, they were called the rangres. Now that you've made any cloth, may it be colorful, plain colorful or plain white, if you want certain prints on it. Now, Indian the community people of weaving, those who were making the weavers, they would make on a very flat piece of wood the design. They would chisel out the design. Now also it's used. They would chisel out the design, dip it in a dye, and then put it on the cloth, press hard on the cloth and leave it to dry, thus giving it those beautiful prints. So the printing part of it, the people were called the chipigars. So these were the people who would make those molds, beautiful carved ones, and then they would dip it in the dye of whatever color they would want, and they would place it very artistically on the cloth side by side so that it would give it a pattern. So we'll stop at this, read the part of the book till textbook till here. Mark for yourself the important terminologies which have been used, and the MCQ questions which can be appearing from the text over here. The rest of it I will teach in the next lecture. It's a long chapter. Thank you.